What's up, everybody? And today we are reacting to part 2 of Bricky's Every Single Warhammer 40k faction explained. Actually, this is my part 5 of his because I've been breaking it down because they're way long. But it's absolutely fantastic. I'm really enjoying it. We finally passed all the different factions with humans in them, even though Chaos is humans. They're pretty much not humans anymore, are they? In fact, they're all pretty much not humans apart from Imperial Guard, so we can't really say that. But you get what I'm saying. We've got past all the human race, the advanced human race, and we're going on to the Eldar, the Tau, the Necrons, and all that good stuff. I'm very interested to learn more about them, especially the Necrons and the Tau. They're the ones I'm really looking forward to. But I have been told by many of you guys that although Bricky, as per usual, is absolutely fantastic with this video, these are just brief introductions to all the factions. So what I might end up doing is picking out the ones I really enjoy and diving deep into the lore of them ones, finding videos that really dive deep into the lore of the Tau or the Grey Knights or the Imperial Guard. So let me know what you think of that. I think that's such a cool idea. As per usual, I will leave a link down below to both part 1 and part 2 of Bricky's videos down below. He's outstanding. He's just reached 700,000 subscribers. Let's bump it up even more. Go over there, subscribe, like both his videos. They're genuinely phenomenal. They really are. So definitely go over there and do that. But for now, let's shut up. Let's pop my head up. We are on to the Eldar. Let's find out what these are all about. The Eldar. These are kind of cool.
So let's talk about the Eldar, or also known as the Eldari, which are a super hyper-specialized and very technologically advanced race of, well, elf people. They were, as well, responsible for the creation of Slaanesh, the newest demon god.
Oh.
They do that? Debauchery on a world-ending scale.
So Slaanesh, or whatever she's called, or he's called, because it's like not a gender, but that was an elf at first, was it? Is that what the crack is? It's funny how they've taken these traditional fantasy tropes, elves, dwarfs, orcs, and they've thrown them into this horrifically grim, dark sci-fi fantasy setting, which is hilarious.
See, back in the day, it was just Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle. And the Eldar are very ancient, millions of years. These Eldar, however, have a bit of a sensory problem. You know, every kind of pain or feeling that you have is a little bit amplified compared to the normal. However, with Eldar, as their race advanced so excessively, and they became so self-reliant, and everything became so easy, there was no requirement for food production anymore, there was no shortages, everything was basically done. Everyone was so comfortable, and that comfort breeded this weird sedation, and that sedation breeded the requirement for more and more debauchery.
Right.
Debauchery! Debauchery! When everything you have can be so easily acquired, you will end up down this road of pure debauchery. All of the senses the Eldar had that were so powerful, things like feeling, happiness, sadness, and just evil and good, all needed to be satisfied and satiated.
So with these Eldar, do we have, so like obviously in traditional fantasy we have dark elves, wood elves, and all these different types of elves. Do we have that same thing, or is it just specifically Eldar? They're all the same thing. They look pretty damn evil. Is that all it is?
And the desire to satiate these senses grew more and more with worse and worse debauchery. It started off with things like sex and drugs becoming so much more rampant because these are the first things you generally turn to.
Is that like a spin on Star Wars with Princess Leia right there?
When requirements for living are so easily accessible. It would get to the point that made Sander Cohen in BioShock look sane. All right, this is the kind of debauchery it led to. It was constantly satisfying and satiating these sexual and sadistic or masochistic fantasies that only elevated and elevated. And this was species-wide. People started going down darker, more depraved, and more violent paths as time went on. However, some people didn't entirely take to that. Some of the Eldar were looking at this depraved species that they had become and said, No thanks for me, dog. I'm good. And they bailed. These are the Craftworld Eldar. They left on these giant continent-sized starships called Craftworlds. They believed in learning the old ways of the Eldar and pushing away from this depravity and debauchery and going back to their main roots. And so they would segment themselves on these giant craft worlds far in the outer reaches of space. They even had this thing called the Webway. Remember what we mentioned about warp travel with the Imperium? Well, the Eldar had something way safer called a Webway. And the Eldar Webway is actually like a pocket dimension kind of thing. And in that pocket dimension, there were also more horrible, depraved groups and clans that would spend their time in there. And if you imagine the debauchery was bad already, these were debauchery X10. So all of this continued, and it bloated.
I tell you what, right? What really is hard as a newcomer into Warhammer 40,000 is every time he's talking about a new faction, I'm like, they're cool as fuck, and I really want to get them. Like, every time he talks about a new one, like, they all intrigue me so much. It's so hard to decide exactly who you want to start with. Like, these are so cool. These are so cool.
Until Slaanesh just burst forth. All that emotion, all that mental, well, thought processes, I suppose. All of this in such a condensed space. Don't forget, this is all being shot, all their souls as well, into the warp. All of this depravity right into the warp. So what happened? Boom! Slaanesh was birthed and killed off 90% of the entire Eldar population.
Holy!
Untold trillions had their souls ripped from their bodies and their actual fleshy bodies devoured by Slaanesh demons. The entirety of the Eldar race was eaten alive and their souls consumed to the Prince of Pleasure. All of them got fucked up. It was so bad that it literally ripped a warp hole into the fabric of the materium called the Eye of Terror. That's literally this like quasi-horrifying gateway portal from the materium and the immaterium right next to Cadia. And it is horrifying.
That's horrific. I tell you what, they've really like elaborated on the lore enough to really like give each faction its own story that is like what would be game breaking in anything else. Like it's super OP per faction, but it works in this universe. It really works, and it's so like different and refreshing in a way. After reading all these stories that are regional, like Dune and Star Wars and Stormlight Archives and all these stories that are genuinely some of the best stories I've ever read, and they always will be. This is a refreshing take on the universe where it's so chaotic. There's so much shit going on that's horrific that in a way it balances everything out. That's so cool. It's so refreshing.
So this Slaanesh, also known as She Who Thirsts by the Eldar, slaughtered the entire population except for a couple. Those in the craft worlds were actually not affected by this as they were so far in the reaches of the galaxy. That crazy crack, that birth of Slaanesh only affected the ones in the center. So these Craftworld Eldar were able to escape, but Slaanesh got their sights on them. Every time an Eldar will die, their soul doesn't just pass into the warp naturally. It goes straight to Slaanesh, Craftworld or not. What about those people in the Webway? Well, imagine that giant birth happening, but they were only able to just barely get a grasp onto you. Slaanesh was just barely able to hold on. These people are the Dark Eldar, or also known as the Drukhari. The Eldar population...
Drukhari, so kind of like, they kind of like, what's Drit's called? A drow elf, right? From D&D, kind of like in that similar vein, but they're the Dark Eldar. So there is different kind of like factions within the big faction, just like Space Marines. There's different, different types of Space Marines, different like factions within the faction. It's the same with the Eldar. I'm happy about that. I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they elaborated on them like that.
Right now is so massively small. It is minuscule compared to any of the other most of the other populations in the universe. The Eldar are consistently having issues trying to get their population up because as their souls are constantly being hungered by from Slaanesh, they realize their entire species is doomed. And they understand it very well. Since the time of the fall, our race has been haunted by what we, in our reckless pursuit of hedonistic indulgence, gave birth to. Though our dreams once overturned worlds and quenched suns, we are now but fitful shadows clinging to the edge of existence. All the stars in the sky cannot blot out the hateful glare of the red moon's eye. The
So
birthing place
cool.
of the great enemy pulses with all the malice of a demon that is dreaming, casting its shadow over all we have ever done and all we ever shall. Every twisted strand of fate and casting of the runes leads me to this time, to this place, and it is clear that the final battle awaits me at the ancient Crone worlds, a conflict the likes of which has not been seen since the Monkai warred amongst themselves and their corpse of a seer fell to his traitorous son. Is coming, and all my steps lead towards it, no matter that I walk other paths. I see the stars stained red with the blood of the Monkai, and though their wars do not concern me, I would gladly let them destroy one another. I know that to avoid this fight is to condemn my race to inevitable doom, and though all I see is darkness, I know that I will not flinch from my destiny.
Amazing. These readouts are so cool. I don't know where he gets them from. They must be from some of the books. One of the things that I've noticed is they've probably, with this lore of the Eldar, they've probably taken the trope of elves from all fantasy. I mean, all elves kind of derive from Tolkien, or the traditional sense of elves, right? Just like dwarves and all that lot. They all, and orcs, even though most of these different races were invented before Tolkien. They've taken the traditional trope of them. So if you can imagine elves as these nature-based, doing what's most natural to the planet, they've taken this race and they've said, okay, what would happen if they were around for millennia, like for tens of thousands of years, maybe hundreds of thousands, even millions of years? What would happen to their sanity? What would happen to their ethos of just nature-based if they're around the universe? Do they start looking inwards at themselves, with the whole like nature based, and start talking about their emotions? And that's how they've got to this corruption. So it seems like a logical path of inevitable kind of deterioration of a race, which is so cool to see. It makes me wonder what they're going to say about the orcs. Do the orcs have a similar path? Is there any of these other races that aren't traditional kind of like fantasy trope races like Necrons and the Tau? And do they have some sort of similar lineage where it's like there is like a kind of a pure ethos of this race that slowly changes over time? Same with the humans, let's be honest. They were like, obviously, you know, as we are right now, what would happen if we started getting these people who could have these kind of mind control abilities? Would they turn to gods after hundreds of thousands of years, tens of thousands of years? What would actually happen to the human race? Would we adapt and develop these soldiers that are 8 foot tall, stacked like brick houses? Do you know what I mean? Like huge people. It's so interesting how they've not just been like, okay, we've got these really cool sci-fi elves that are just dark and good. They've really thought about what's going on. I know I'm talking a lot here, but it's so cool.
And now let's talk about cute plastic models.
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
The first playable race we have for the Eldar are the Craftworld Eldar, and living in those Craftworld starships I mentioned earlier. And each of them have their own kind of Craftworld, almost like a Space Marine Legion. Each Craftworld is in itself its own special kind of group. And the Eldar themselves are very fast and rely a lot on trickery. They are squishy, a bit weak, but they're very in tune as psychers. Tons of psychers across the entire Eldar population, and their weaponry and abilities are fast and extremely hard-hitting, but of course rather fragile. Understanding an Eldar's brain is an exercise in futility. They are all over the place in confusion and trickery on a whole galactic scale. They fight weird, they think weirder, and Eldar in their own right really rely on this to keep their species alive. They need to think about deception and the strangeness of what they do if they truly want to not be immediately murdered and slaughtered wholesale thanks to their entirely small population.
Okay, that makes sense. But while he's saying that, I'm also looking at these pictures in the background of the Eldar, and you have to admit the armor they have, I don't really like it all that much, but it definitely is giving off that 80s sci-fi vibe. You get what I'm saying? Like the helmets, they're so 80s alien kind of sci-fi-esque. I think it's a really cool aesthetic. I don't really like it all that much. I prefer the Eldar that don't have the masks on. I think they look a bit cooler. But it's still very unique. It's a unique kind of retro take on sci-fi.
However, I must say that it seems like their population is getting slightly better. These craft worlds hold millions upon millions of people. And as they continually, reproduce and have their craft worlds expand, losing a few people in battle, while hurts a lot, they aren't really losing what's extremely precious to them. It's not like every single death means the death of their species. It seems like they're kind of on the upturn a little bit. They're still a doomed race being sucked into Slaanesh every time someone dies, but they are definitely doing a little bit better than they were before. Eldar are fast, cunning, and what they don't make up for in tankiness, they make up for in extremely advanced weaponry. They also call humans Monkai, which is something I mentioned earlier. That is a derogatory slur for humans in the Warhammer world. Why is it called Monkai? Well, it's because you can't, in your game, call people monkeys. On the tabletop, exactly what I said. Not very tanky, generally pretty squishy, hit like trucks, and move at Mach 5. Fast, hit hard, die fast. Exactly how it sounds. They've been good for a very long time, too. We bring only death and leave only carry on. It is a message even a human can understand. Eldar. So, Drukhari. Let's talk about the Dark Eldar.
On today's episode of How Fucked Up Is Fucked Up. That's fucked up.
So, those people I mentioned in the webway, in the super deranged cults and the depraved people of the Eldar, in the webway, they didn't quite get a hold onto them. Slaanesh has them, but it has them on by the pinky finger. And they're slowly being consumed by Slaanesh, but they found out they can stave her off by doing Slaanesh things. The Dark Eldar are by far the worst, most horrifying, disgusting, depraved, and brutal race in all of Warhammer 40k.
Damn.
These are entirely a group of people whose full purpose to save their species from extinction, to go into planets, raid them, and take as many slaves as they possibly can.
Damn.
To torture them for 1, 5, 10, 20, a million years, because that torture will keep them from dying. They look very BDSM style too. They definitely have a lot more spiky bits and they have a lot more of that kind of leathery black look to them. But let's say you are an upstanding Imperial citizen, living life on a regular planet. You get invaded by the Necrons. The Necrons will shoot you with a deatomizer, and you will be destroyed in a millisecond, and that's it.
Okay.
Not the worst way to go. You are invaded by Chaos Marines or something. You take a bolter shot to the head or a chain sword across your stomach, and you get cut in half. Painful, but not the worst. The orcs arrive.
Not the worst.
They beat you to death. Hurts, but, whatever. Tyranids, they eat you alive. It's pretty rough. The Dark Eldar. This is going to get a little graphic. I apologize. You pray you die. You don't. You are instead taken as a human slave. Your life will be endless work and agony, 24/7. They will make sure you can't not die, as your pain satisfies them. They will hook you up to all manner of torture devices.
That's
will
horrific.
Inject pain-based stimuli drugs directly into your nervous system. They will slowly run razor blades across your skin. They will fillet you and pull out your teeth and your fingernails one by one. They will remove your appendages and your skin and wait for it to grow back so they can do it again. They will murder and torture and use the R word, it rhymes with grape, your entire family in front of you, and do the exact same thing to them. You yourself will also be rhymes with grape anywhere and everywhere possible. And this will occur for 20 years until you are no longer satisfying to them. And then you will be contorted, crushed, and twisted into some form of trophy, a fleshy trophy, or a ring, or a couch, or a TV stand, or perhaps a wonderful hat, while you are, of course, still alive and breathing. And you will become a moaning, fleshy trophy for eternity.
That sounds horrific.
And that is what happens when you are taken by the Dark Eldar. They are the most depraved, most horrifying race in all of 40k. They live
that's
the part,
horrific.
And they do it so they all don't die. They are literally forced to do this, because if they don't, Slaanesh's grip will get harder, and they will have their souls pulled away.
That sounds
so long
horrific.
as they keep doing this, Slaanesh is like, "You're doing good, man. You're doing solid. You keep that shit up, you elf-eared bastards." That's the Dark Eldar. That's the Drukhari. They are horrible. On the tabletop, they're actually kind of like Eldar, but more extreme. They are even squishier than the Eldar, but they hit generally even harder. Fast attacks, skirmishers, really quick, speedy, like get around them, do a lot of damage, get away kind of stuff.
They look very Mad Max kind of style, don't they? Like, it looks like they've put some of this stuff together on a whim, but I mean, they're also Eldar, so they're very smart. I think I expected Dark Eldar to just be evil elves, but holy crap, they seem to be very evil. They seem to be really bad. That's horrific. This might be the only one that I'm like, I'll pass. I'm not into that.
That's mostly the Dark Eldar. Look up the definition of grim dark in the dictionary. You'll find a picture of the Dark Eldar. And Sev from Republic Commando.
Speaking of Republic Commando, Monday, that's going to be a ton of fun. I'm really excited. We're going to be playing Republic Commando for the first time. One of very few Star Wars games I've never played, so I'm excited to try it.
Quote from Mr. Vecht. "We are the lords of despair, masters of terror. Dread and agony are our meat and wine, and they are plentiful indeed."
Interesting.
Dark Eldar. Let's talk about the Harlequins. Clowns.
What's the matter, Andy?
Harlequins. It's
The
clown
Harlequins
elves.
are a bizarre race of Eldar.
What?
They're demonic clown performers. They're like a weird mix of Sander Cohen from BioShock and Jin from League of Legends, but in a more clown theme. They're artists of death and perfecters of their craft. They do not belong to Craftworlds or any of the weird Drukhari people. They guard something called the Black Library, which is this giant tome of never-ending knowledge deep in the heart of the Eldar webway, and also guarded by their god named Kegorok, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is the laughing god. But it's the Eldar's laughing god, and these are the Harlequins, the Harlequin clowns. These are Eldar clowns, okay? So imagine the things that an Eldar, these depraved individuals, would find funny, and this is the god of that. It's a horror clown. These are gods of horror for us normal people. For them,
that
they're
sounds
like,
so weird.
Oh, it's so funny. They're all dying horribly. Honk, honk. They're very bizarre and difficult to describe.
Yeah.
They've escaped the ruinous powers of Slaanesh somehow, but their main thing is guarding that Black Library. And the Harlequins just... they're demon clown performers. They're barely any models on the tabletop. They're good in melee. They're demon clowns. I'm not sure.
I wonder, is this like kind of like how you can mix up Space Marines and kind of the Imperial Guard? Can you, like, you can put in a few Imperial Guards with some Space Marines and stuff like that. Can you do the same with these ones? Is that what this is about? Is this like a very specialized branch of Eldar? Kind of like the Grey Knights, per se?
I got a quote.
Let me know in the comments.
It is too easy for an Eldar to embrace the obscene virtues of chaos, for Slaanesh is nothing more than a manifestation of the Eldar mind in its most wild and unconstrained form. Human morality is meaningless to the Eldar, and to the dark side of the Eldar mind, all life is to be expended at a whim. Cruelty and generosity are but the impulse of a moment. Beauty and sensuality are virtues that can be expressed in bloodshed just as easily as in song. To an unfettered Eldar mind, there is neither sanity nor madness, but merely a wave of perfect existence fulfilled by its own savage momentum. They're very
Interesting.
strange.
Yeah,
The
they're really
Harlequins,
strange.
Drukhari, Eldar, they are an anomaly that make humans seem completely easy to understand in comparison. They range from rekindling their civilization to horrifying murder and also clowns. They're all over the place, but honestly, they represent quite well and are rather interesting, especially with the whole Slanesh murdering everyone bit. So, yeah, Eldar.
Interesting.
Bugs.
Mom, they following me, Mom.
What time are we on? Let's watch this one. Let's watch this because I'm into this. I'm liking it too much.
The bugs.
I'm liking it.
The Tyranids. Now, you want to talk something a lot more fun, a little more simple than all this crazy Eldar shenanigans? Let's talk the Tyranids. They're bugs. Do they look like Zerg? Hell yeah, they look like Zerg. You want to know why they look like Zerg? Because they were actually supposed to be what Zerg were. Apparently, StarCraft was supposed to be a 40k game in the beginning.
Really?
Hence why they look so much like Eldar, Zerg, and the Imperium of Man.
Interesting.
Like, Space Marine-y, those Marines, huh? They look a little bit Space Marine-y to me. Maybe. I don't know. You really fucked up on that one, Games Workshop, didn't ya? Tyranids are a giant infestation of unfathomable proportions.
They kind of remind me of the aliens from Starship Troopers. Anyone seen that film? Classic. Let me know in the comments down below.
These are giant, extremely bio-advanced hive mind organisms.
Hive mind?
That are basically all about absorbing as much biomass as they possibly can to evolve and mutate to be extremely potent and powerful and kill and eat anything in their path. They are probably the least evil faction in all of 40k because all they want to do is eat shit. They want to nom nom the entire galaxy. They hangry and we food. Also, this Tyranid hive mind has a presence in the warp. In fact, Tyranids in their own right have a massive presence in the warp. They have a thing called the shadow in the warp specifically, where when they are coming in to invade a planet, they have this weird ability to kind of cut off the warp on all the psychers on that planet. And
Weird.
how do you get help across the stars? Well, you need the warp because you need that for interstellar travel. So with people unable to call for help from the Tyranids, these are just easy pickings. And an entire giant Tyranid hive fleet comes out of orbit and just will massacre, absorbing all that biomass and turning them and all of their other Tyranids into even more advanced monsters.
It seems like these are more ravaging than any of the others. They're more brutal in a way, rather than the rest of like the Eldar. They're very smart. The human race with the Space Marines and stuff, they're a little bit more tactical. These just seem like pure brutality, going in there, eating everything, and then just going to the next place. And that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I like that they've really thought of all these different aspects of chaotic evil. In a way, I think that's the way the best say it. You've got the tactical awareness of the humans. You've got the I mean, what do you even call the Eldar? There's so many different variants of them, and they're so bizarre. The weirdness and the cleverness. Cleverness? Am I making up words today? You get what I'm saying? They're really smart, the Eldar, and then you've got these things that are just like brutal. Bear with me, guys. I don't usually record in the morning. I'm trying something new. It's early in the morning, and I'm still half asleep. Can't speak properly. I'm making up words.
They come in so many varieties too, all based on what is important. Tiny little ripper swarms for scouting and having little dudes eat people up, to the Hormagons, Termagants, and Gene Stealers, all the way to the Hive Guard and the Exocrines and the Swarm Lord, to Hive Tyrants and their giant battle fleets, and even something as crazy as the Hierophant Bio-Titan. The Tyranids come in all forms and sizes depending on what they require. They are extremely good at anti-biological weaponry. There is no way you can plague them or blight them. They have extremely strong armor, carapaces and such. Tyranids are nigh perfect organisms and are pretty spooky when it comes down to how they handle all of their genetic material. Keep feeding them, they'll keep evolving.
Pretty damn cool.
Creating new horrifying organisms to spread across the galaxy. And you want to know what the most terrifying part of the Tyranids is? We might be surrounded There have been like around 6 or 7 Tyranid hive fleets. Behemoth, Kronos, all these different kinds of hive fleets. And they've all arrived in the galaxy from different points. Different sections of the Milky Way
Ooh.
galaxy have had different Tyranids come through. And that is horrifying. Because as far as we know, we could just be surrounded on all sides by Tyranids. The only
That's really cool. That is so cool. They've really thought of everything, haven't they? Like, they've really thought of everything. Now, I don't think these Tyranids are something I would personally collect. I don't think they're my cup of tea. But I think the idea behind them is brilliant. They've genuinely... I mean, they've had a long time to think about this. They've had a long time to develop books and lore. But they've really thought of every different aspect of the universe and what could possibly be coming to get them. Apart from, the only thing they've turned around and said, nah, is to anything good. Pure goodness, they've been like, nah, we don't need that. Let's turn these bugs into, like, ravenous beasts that would kill everything and just eat them all. Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's get elves and turn them so evil that you don't even want to look at them. But no, we don't want anything pure goodness. We don't want that.
The reason you may not hear a whole lot about Tyranids is because it's a little bit hard to have a bunch of story off of one hive mind genocidal monsters.
Yeah.
All these giant bugs swarming in, killing and eating everybody and evolving. Oh, I mean, as cool as there are, there's some cool characters, the Swarm Lord, Old One Eye. You can't really have a whole bunch of major character-based stories around them. As
Yep.
awesome as they are, they're simple. They want to eat you. They want to eat you and absorb your biomass. They are simple bugs. If you want something a little more complex, talk gene stealer cults.
I can have all the pot I want, I get around faster than walking,
What time are
and
we at?
wherever I need a seat, I can just sit on my balls.
Gene
I think we're going to end it here on something that's really intriguing me. But we're going to end it there. Again, Bricky's done amazing. Links down below to his videos. What do I think? I think, what were them Eldar called? The ones that are, like, actually not evil. They're kind of good. I forgot what they're called. You know which ones I'm talking about. The ones that aren't the creepy ones. The ones that live in the giant ships. I've already forgot their name. Damn it! No, not the Drukhari. Oh, I'm heartbroken. I've already lost the name of it. Craftworld. Them people. Is that what they're called? The Craftworlds? Anyway, I think they're really, really cool. I think they're very unique and very, not as evil as the Drukhari, but they've got a cool spin on what I would think a traditional elven trope would be far, far in the future, where they're kind of living on ships, floating around, and they have their own, like, ethos and, like, ability to do whatever they need to do, and they're all psychers, which is kind of cool. I think the Dark Eldar are just horrific, and I don't want anything to do with them. They can stay away from me. They look cool, but nope. Not my cup of tea. And then the Tyranids, I think the idea behind them is so good, but I think Bricky hit the nail on the head where they're very simplistic at the end of the day. Even though there's so many of them, we could be surrounded by them, they're very simplistic. They're just bugs that are in there to eat, to reproduce, and eat some more. And I think that is a really... I think that simplicity is needed in a world of complexity like this, or a universe of complexity, where there's all these different factions of humans that have all been changed and manipulated both mentally and physically, and you've got these elves that have been around for millennia, and they've just been, you know, over time, they've deteriorated, some have escaped, they've turned into packs, they've created a god. There's all this complexity around these different races that they've turned around and said, here's some bugs. They've got a hive mind, kind of like Starship Troopers, and they're out there to just eat and take over the galaxy. That's it. There's no other hidden agenda. There's nothing. They're just brutal. They're pretty much can escape anything. They don't have any. There's no way of them catching diseases or anything. They're just pure, like, barbarianism, and that's it. And I think that's really cool. I think that's very unique. And I think that the Tau and the Necrons and these other ones that he's about to talk about, the what they called, the gene stealer cults, I think these are all going to have, like, a little bit more alien vibe to them. So, like, at the end of the day, elves are just elves. We've had these in fantasy before. They're not really alien. They're just fantasy. The bug one, you could say, is alien. I think that's probably the most alien we've got out of this so far. Like Starship Troopers, it's very unique, this hive mind. You see that a lot in a lot of fantasy things, like like Destiny, the game. There's a hive mind kind of bug type of race on there, and you get that quite a lot in sci-fi. But I think what the Necrons and the Tau are is like true fantasy, true sci-fi, sorry, like traditional sci-fi, especially what the Tau look like. They look like your typical aliens, and I think that is traditional sci-fi in its core, and I'm excited to see how that fits in this world of chaos. How does that fit in this world of chaos? How do the Necrons fit in there with all this chaotic stuff going on? Because I know there's some sort of like ancient beings, I'm pretty sure, but how does it work in this universe where there is already ancient beings of the elves? There's already these weird bug creatures coming out from outside the galaxy. How are they cohesive in there, and does it merge well? That's what I'm really intrigued for to see in the next video. But yeah, as always, I'm really enjoying this. I'm kind of plucking the things that I really like. So I really like the not so evil elves. I really like the grey space marines, grey wolves, what are they called, grey knights. I like the space marines, especially the space wolves, or the wolf marines, or whatever they're friggin' called. Guys, it's too early. I like the Imperial Guard, and I kind of like the look of the Tau, but I'm not sure about it. I'm gonna pluck them out of this list once we've learned the Bobby basics of them, and then I'm gonna go away and find pure lore videos on them specific factions, which I'm sure you guys will help me in the comments down below, and we'll start reacting to that stuff as well. It doesn't have to be Bricky, even though I love Bricky stuff. I think he's amazing, but it doesn't have to be Bricky. So we'll start diving deep once we finish this, which I think we'll upload the next one tomorrow maybe, and we'll start going into the lore from there on out, okay? But before we go, as per usual, members, you're amazing. I love you. I couldn't do this without you. I honestly couldn't make these videos every single day if it wasn't for these members right here. So thank you for supporting the channel as much as you do. I truly appreciate it. Links down below to all the usual stuff, including the 2 links to Discord. We've got the military link for all things military, joining the military, getting fit for the military, all that stuff. Join the military Discord. We've got the Geek Discord for all things Warhammer, SCP, D&D, Halo, Star Wars, Metro, all that good stuff. Head over to the Geek Discord. We also have a link to my podcast down below and my Twitch stream, where I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and also a link down below to my second channel, Original Human Geek, where we're doing stuff like D&D and some other fun stuff. And also, I will be running the next D&D campaign with my own original story and setting, so definitely go and check that out. It's going to be a ton of fun. Until next time, guys, I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.